Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world. Even more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, in Kansas, in Georgia, in Texas, in Missouri, Fiji Island, Mexico, Spain, in Africa, Kenya, Pakistan, to the United Kingdom, and also to our brethren in Australia. And to the rest of the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad, greetings. May the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. This is our episode number 38, the subject, the chronological order of events. And upon the request of our beloved brother Steve and Sister Corinne, and to the rest of the brethren who are listening and viewing this program, good evening. May the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to begin our study reading 3 Symbolic Code 5 and 6, page 12. It says, when we have come to the last hour of the day, from 5 to 6 p.m., we recognize the fact that we are in the end of the day, even though the last minute has not yet come. Likewise, inasmuch as Christ's parable of the vineyard is true to life, then according to physical analogy, we can understand the last hour, the 11th hour of the symbolical day of present human history to be only the end of the world. So, here the Shepherd's Rod plainly told us that we can understand when the last hour, the 11th hour, will arrive. And for sure, the only way that we could understand it is at the time of the divinely appointed time. And that is one of the principal reason why Jesus Christ followed such particular rule, 3-hour schedule, to present to his church the exact time of her history by periods. 2SR 237. The reason he has followed that particular rule is to present to his church the exact time of her history by periods. And of course, that is the 11th hour church. Because the truth of the parable in Matthew 20 had never been understood by any other company. 2SR 234. But the object of the lesson is for the latter, who are hired at the 11th hour, for the truth of the parable has never been understood by any other company. So, we need to claim that promise given by Jesus Christ. And if at this time we could be able to comprehend the message in its entirety, then according to the shepherd's rod, this is the divinely appointed time. Here in 1 TG 37:11, it says, there is no other safe conclusion if God causes the prophecies to be written, sealed, and then unsealed at His will and at the time appointed. 1 TG 37 on page 11. Now, let's read 2SR 220. It says, the 144,000 are sealed before the silence of half an hour, or at the opening of the seal, but they are judged in the period of the seventh seal. For the prayer was for all saints, the living. So, let us carefully elaborate this sentence. Accordingly, the 144,000 are sealed before the silence of half an hour. So, I would like to make a little illustration. So this is the half hour silence. So before the half hour silence, it says the 144,000 are sealed before the half hour silence, according to our reading. And it says, or at the opening of the seventh seal. So the 144,000, they are sealed before the half hour silence, and they are sealed at the opening of the seventh seal. So in that reading, it's easy to understand that the opening of the seventh seal occurred prior to the half hour silence. So, let us focus our attention to first to the half-hour silence. Now let us read track number 15. Track number 15. So here in track number 15, on page 18 and 19, it says, although the proceedings of the first two sessions are somewhat different, they are in all other respects similar. The third, however, is entirely unlike the first two. The differences are seen in that before the half-hour silence occurs, there is at the throne a sea of glass like unto crystal. Revelation 4 verse 6. And no one stands on it. But after the half-hour silence passes away, the scene changes. The sea of glass is mingled with fire. And them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. Revelation 15, verse 2. In other words, at the first judicial sitting, there is no one standing on the sea of glass, and the sea itself is like unto crystal. While at the second sitting, the sea appears like unto a fiery stream, and the saints stand on it. Track number 15, page 18 and page 19. So, the shepherd's rod plainly telling us that before the half-hour silence occurs, the sea of glass is like unto crystal. And accordingly, there is no saints standing on it. But after the half-hour silence, the scene changes. The sea of glass, which is like unto crystal, is already mingled with fire. And accordingly, it became a fiery stream. And then the saints standing on the sea of glass. So that is the statement given by the voice of inspiration. Now, since according to the voice of inspiration, the only portion by which God showed to Daniel is concerning the first judicial sitting as well as the first judicial session. And we already studied that concerning the second judicial session, the only portion by which God showed to Daniel is the preparation, while the second judicial session is being prepared. So let us read tract number 15, page 13. Saying, both seers distinctly declare that the event which they saw was the judgment. The difference between the two scenes is that Daniel was led to look into the sanctuary while preparations were being made for the judgment to convene. Whereas John was led to look into the sanctuary after the judgment had been set up. In fact, John not only saw the judgment in progress, but he saw the whole proceeding from start to finish. So in this reading, we can easily discern that the place in the sanctuary, in the heavenly sanctuary, by which the judicial proceedings in the most holy place, where the judgment that pertains to the dead had been convened, is not the same place by which the judicial proceedings that pertains to the living is to convene. Although that is within the sanctuary. So the sanctuary, represented by the most holy place in the heavenly sanctuary, of course, it is bigger than the sanctuary illustrated on earth. For example, this is the entire sanctuary, the entire most holy place. So, if this is the place, for example, this is the place by which the judicial proceedings, brothers and sisters, the judicial proceedings of the judgment that pertains to the dead place, where the judgment of the living to convene. Otherwise, brothers and sisters, Daniel had been able to see not only while the place are being prepared, and secondly, it is illogical to say that after the proceedings of the judgment that pertains to the dead, is finished, then there is another place that had been being prepared for the judicial proceedings that pertains to the living. Now let us go back again to our study. In track number 15, on page 15, it says, the student of advancing truth will also note that Daniel refers to but one judicial session, although he does make mention of the judgment twice. First in verse 10 of chapter 7, and second in verse 22. So concerning the judicial session, we already explained that judicial sitting is directly applied to the proceedings in the holy place. But judicial session is directly applied to the proceedings in the most holy place. The vision that was shown by God to Daniel is only pertaining to the judgment that pertains to the dead, or only concerning the dead. But God showed to Daniel the judgment that pertains to the living, but only the preparations. And according to our reading in track 15, page 15, the judicial session, the first judicial session in the most holy place, Daniel mentioned of it twice. According to reading in track 15:15. And the first mention is Daniel 7 verse 10. And since the Bible is very plain that Daniel 7 verse 10, it says, Daniel 7 verse 10, a fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. So that is very plain. The first mention of Daniel on the first judicial session is Daniel verse 10, by which he plainly declared that it is a fiery stream. And that description, according to the shepherd's rod, is already during the second judicial sitting. Now, I would like to read track 15, page 19. Beginning from page 18. It says, the differences are seen in that before the half-hour silence occurs. So we need to analyze closely the half-hour silence mentioned here. It says, the differences are seen in that before the half-hour silence occurs, there is at the throne a sea of glass like unto crystal. Revelation 4:6, and no one stands on it. But after the half-hour silence passes away, the scene changes. The sea of glass is mingled with fire, and them that have gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the hearts of God. Revelation 15:2. In other words, at the first judicial sitting, there is no one standing on the sea of glass. And the sea itself is like unto crystal. While at the second sitting, the sea appears like unto a fiery stream, and the saints stand on it. So, for example, I would like to illustrate. We know the commencement of the first judicial sitting is October 22, 1844. October 22, 1844. This is holy place. And pointing to the second heaven. Now this is the half-hour silence. Half-hour silence. So during this period of time, the sea of glass, like unto crystal, like unto crystal. And it says, no saints standing on it. No saints is standing on it. I'm sorry, I would like to separate this one. Because the sea of glass is found in the most holy place. So this is October 22, 1844. Then half-hour silence. Half-hour silence. So, the sea of glass, like unto crystal. No saints is standing on it. No saints standing. So that is the statement in the shepherd's rod. But after the half-hour silence, the scene changes. This is the first judicial session. This is the first judicial sitting. This is the second judicial sitting. I would like to read again. track 15 so that we could understand. Track number 15, page 29. It says, so in the great day of final atonement and investigative judgment, the judgment of the first two sittings, so two judicial sittings, the time to separate the tares from the wheat. So that is blotting out of names, because to separate the tares from the wheat, and that proceedings is in the holy place. So it is called the first judicial sitting. But the statement on track number 15, page 29 is pointing to the last day of atonement on the first judicial sitting, and also the last day of atonement on the second judicial sitting. And according to that reading, the first judicial sitting pertains to the dead. The second judicial sitting is pertain to the living. Right? So that is the statement, brothers and sisters. Now, the voice of inspiration says that at the first judicial sitting, the description of the most holy place, the sea of glass, is like unto crystal, no saint standing on it. But in the second judicial sitting, after the half-hour silence, the scene changes. Now, let us enumerate, brothers and sisters, the changes. So, I would like to illustrate the changes. Now, for example, this is the half-hour silence. And also, this is in the most holy place. The most holy place. This is, of course, gradual. The first changes is the sea of glass mingled with fire. The first changes is, the sea of glass like unto crystal. I'm sorry. The sea of glass, sea of glass like unto crystal. So the first changes is it was mingled with fire. Then after mingled with fire, the sea of glass became fiery stream. And then the third one is, then after the sea of glass become fiery stream, the saints stand on it. So, these are the three changes according to the shepherd's rod. after the half-hour silence, mingled with fire. Then, the sea of glass become fiery stream. And then, the saints stand on it. And we will prove to you that these three changes also demonstrate three half-hour silence. On the first half-hour silence, the sea of glass mingled with fire. And the next half-hour silence, the sea of glass become fiery stream. And the next half-hour silence, the saints stand on it. So let us gradually decipher, brothers and sisters, that event. Now, for example, this is the first judicial sitting from October 22, 1844. And this is the half-hour silence. Half-hour silence. Do not forget, brothers and sisters, that the only portion that was shown by God to Daniel is the first judicial sitting. It is concerning the dead. What is judicial sitting? According to Tract 1529, to separate the tares from the wheat, or blotting out of names. Blotting out of names. Blotting out of names. Of course, before the half-hour silence occur, all the names of the wicked under the first 6 seals, because that first 6 seals is concerning the dead, according to 2 SR 202. Then immediately after the proceedings of the first judicial sitting, the intervening period, brothers and sisters, to commence the second judicial sitting is the half-hour silence. So this is the second judicial sitting. What is the second judicial sitting? It is already pertaining to the living. It is pertaining to the dead. Now, the statement in 2 SR 220, let us read again. The 144,000 are sealed before the silence of half an hour, or at the opening of the seal, but they are judged in the period of the 7th seal. For the prayer was for all saints, the living. 2SR 220. Now let us ponder deeply that statement. The 144,000 are sealed before the half-hour silence. So it could not be the half-hour silence mentioned here. The half-hour silence, which is the intervening period when the first judicial sitting is finished and before the second judicial sitting begins. Why? Because the statement says the 144,000 are sealed before the half-hour silence or at the opening of the seventh seal. And the divine principle is that the seventh seal can never be opened not until the proceedings of the first six seals must be finished first, must be closed. So there is no opening of the seventh seal in this period of time. And at the time when the first judicial sitting is finished, there is half-hour silence before the second judicial sitting. So the opening of the seventh seal, it must be after the half-hour silence. Not before the half-hour silence. Now, for example, I would like to read to SR. It says here, to SR let's read this statement. 2SR 215. 2SR page 215. Now let us consider the truth as taught by the last seal. Note carefully the order of its act. The seal is opened and silence follows. For it reads, when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence. The Revised Version, Weymouth, the Greek and the Bulgarian Bibles read the same. The silence was followed by the angel coming to the altar with the censer after he offered the prayers of the saints and then filled the censer with fire and cast the fire to the earth. And again, the voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. This is the exact order of its event. Now, it is really a quite deep study, brothers and sisters. Now, let us now place in a proper arrangement this statement into SR 215, 216. Hope that you are following my, because my board is little, so you learn how to follow. So according to 2SR 215, the statement says half hour silence. And after the half hour silence, the seventh seal is opened. Or the seventh seal is open, then I would like to read again. I might. The seventh seal is open, then half hour silence followed the seventh, when the seventh seal is open. Let us read again. 2SR 215. It says, now let us consider the truth as taught by the last seal. Note carefully the order of its act. The seal is opened. And then after the seal is open, silence follows. And silence follows, for it reads, and when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence. The Revised Version, Weymouth, the Greek, and the Bulgarian Bibles read the same way. The silence was followed by the angel coming to the altar with the censer after he offered the prayers of the saints, and then filled the censer with fire and cast the fire to the earth. And again, the voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. This is the exact order of its event. Now, I would like to illustrate again. So, according to the reading, the first event is the seventh seal is opened. Then after the seventh seal is opened, silence follows. So, the next event is half hour silence. Then after the half hour silence, the angel offered the prayers. It says, the angel offered the prayers. Then after the angel offered the prayers, cast the fire into the earth. So, that is the exact order of events according to the shepherd's rod. The fire cast unto the earth, and then when the fire cast to the earth, then there were voices, then thunderings, then lightnings, and earthquake. So the voices followed after the fire cast to the earth. Then after the voices, thunderings. And after the thunderings, lightnings. And after the lightnings, earthquake. So voices, thunderings, lightnings, then earthquake. And it says, this is the exact order of its event. Now, in 2SR 220, the statement was, the 144,000, they are sealed before the half-hour silence. And at the opening of the seventh seal. The term the seventh seal is opened, it must be the end part of the opening. Because the term opening gradually being opened. So to say the seventh seal is open, meaning that is the end part of the opening of the seventh seal. Or in other words, The sealing of the 144,000 is cumulative. Right? Cumulative process. So when the seventh seal is open, being the end part of the opening of the seventh seal, the entire 144,000 is sealed. So this is the entire period of the sealing of the 144,000. In the period of the opening of the seventh seal and before the half-hour silence, because the half-hour silence followed after the seventh seal is opened. So the 144,000 are sealed before the half-hour silence, and the sealing of the 144,000 is at the opening of the seventh seal. But when the seventh seal is open, the 144,000 are completely sealed. But we are talking about the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary, not on the earth. Because half-hour silence, that is in the heavenly sanctuary. Now let us go back again to the reading in 2SR page 220. The 144,000 are sealed before the silence of half an hour. When does the half-hour silence occurred? After the seventh seal is opened. 2SR 215. When does the 144,000 are sealed? Before the silence of half an hour. Let us read again the statement. The 144,000 are sealed before the silence of half an hour, or at the opening of the seal, at the opening of the seventh seal, but they are judged in the period of the seventh seal. For the prayer was for all saints, the living. We already read that when it is offering the prayers, there is no connection at all to the saints that will be resurrected. All of them is pertaining to the living, according to the voice of inspiration. Now, the statement says the 144,000 are sealed before the half-hour silence or at the opening of the seventh seal. Logically, the opening of the seventh seal occurs before the half-hour silence, because the half-hour silence followed after the seventh seal is opened. According to 2SR 215. And the term, the seventh seal is open, that is the end part of the opening. For example, you are opening the door. So when the door is completely open, then you will say the door is open. So the opening, that is the period of time by which the 144,000 are to be sealed. But such sealing is in the heavenly sanctuary. So the statement, but they are judged in the period of the seventh seal. So the period of the seventh seal is at the time when the seventh seal is opened. Now, for example, track number 9. In tract number 9, page 54, it says, the sealing of the 144,000 takes place in the period of the sixth seal. Just prior to the opening of the seventh seal. Now, if you will not study closely this statement, it will contradict to SR 220. Because the statement in tract number 9, page 54, the 144,000 are sealed prior to the opening of the seventh seal. Whereas 2SR 220 it says, the 144,000 are sealed at the opening of the seventh seal. The word prior is before the opening. And the statement at the opening of the seventh seal, that is in the period of the seventh seal. But it's easy to understand, brothers and sisters, that the statement in tract number 9, page 54, pointing to the proceedings in the most holy place. So, let us, whereas the statement in 2SR 220 is in the holy place. So, in the holy place, it is already the opening of the seventh seal, but in the most holy place, it is the opening of the sixth seal. Opening of the sixth seal. The sixth seal is the altar. You remember? So this is the judgment of the dead that pertains to the altar. What does it mean by judgment of the dead? Blotting out of sins. So, here in the most holy place, that is the opening of the sixth seal. So, the sealing of the constituent of the sixth seal, whereas in the holy place, that is already the sealing of the 144,000. Opening of the seventh seal in the holy place, but in the most holy place, opening of the sixth seal. So the statement in tract number 9 on page 54, the 144,000, the sealing of the 144,000 in the holy place is during the opening of the sixth seal in the most holy place, just prior to the opening of the seventh seal in the most holy place. So the statement in 2SR 220 says that the 144,000 are sealed prior to the half-hour silence, but or at the opening of the seventh seal in the holy place. So let us distinctly separate the book in the most holy place and the book in the holy place. The book in the holy place, that is the Lamb's Book of Life, not sealed with 7 seals. Whereas the book in the most holy place, that is the Lamb's Book of Life, sealed with 7 seals. But since we are studying the 7th seal, the Lamb's Book of Life, not sealed with 7th seal in the holy place, began to be open. But in the most holy place, the Lamb's Book of Life, sealed with 7th seal, or sealed with the 6th seal, began to open. So the opening of the 6th seal in the most holy place, and the opening of the 7th seal in the holy place. So hope we understand, brothers and sisters. Now, let us proceed to our investigation. We already declared that there are different half-hour silence. The first half-hour silence, brothers and sisters, occurred in the holy place. And in that half-hour silence, the sea of glass, clear as crystal, in the most holy place, changes. It is mingled with fire. Mingled with fire. But it became fiery stream after the half-hour silence in the most holy place. And then, brothers and sisters, on the next half-hour silence, after the sea of glass became fiery stream, the saints stand on it. So there are three consecutive order. The first half-hour silence, the sea of glass, clear as crystal, mingled with fire. Then the second half-hour silence, the sea of glass became fiery stream. And then the next event, the saints stand on it. Daniel had been able to see only the two changes. When the sea of glass, clear as crystal, mingled with fire and then became fiery stream. But on the third event, Daniel did not saw, or God never give vision to Daniel when the saints is standing on the sea of glass, which is already a fiery stream. That indication, brothers and sisters, that Daniel had never been able to see when the saints is standing on the sea of glass, which become fiery stream, is the strongest evidence that the changes, brothers and sisters, is a period of time. Because if the changes, when it become fiery stream, immediately the saints stand on it. Supposed to be, Daniel had been able to see the saints standing on it. But he had been able to see when the sea of glass, when it mingled with fire and then became fiery stream, Daniel saw it. But when the saints is already standing on the sea of glass, which mingled with fire, became fiery stream, Daniel had not been able to see it. So that is consecutive order of events. Now, second, brothers and sisters, we explained already that Daniel 7 verse 10, that is the first mention of the first judicial session according to tract 15:15. So, the first mention, Daniel 7 verse 10, cannot be referring to the commencement of the judicial session in the most holy place in October 22, 1844, because Daniel declared it became fiery stream. When thus the sea of glass, clear as crystal, became fiery stream, according to tract 15, 18, and 19, tract 15, 17, and 18, then 18, 19. It is after the half-hour silence. Now, I would like to read to you here in tract 15. track number 15. Page 19. That the dead are judged in the first session, and the living in the second session. So that is very clear. In the first session, who are they that had been judged? Only the dead. When does the living is judged? In the second session. The same with the judicial sitting. The only one that had been judged on the first judicial sitting are the dead, or the saints that will be resurrected. And the one to be judged in the second judicial sitting are the living saints, the saints that will no longer to taste death. Although, according to track number 5110, the second fruits, the great multitude, will no longer be judged in the holy place, by which we call the judicial sitting. That is the significance that they will no longer be measured, because they will be inscribed into the Lamb's Book of Life, although it is not sealed with 7 seals or the 7th seal. But at that time, after the books had been completely cleansed, then the names of the great multitude will be inscribed into that book, and God will no longer allow that there are still names of the wicked to be inscribed into that book. Why? Because Jesus Christ will no longer return to the holy place. When Jesus Christ will return to the most holy place, as His second coming to the most holy place, Jesus Christ will no longer return to the holy place, because there will be no more blotting out of names. The proceedings from that time onwards are only blotting out of sins of the righteous. Now, let us read track number 15. On page 67, it says, track number 15, page 67, the truth therefore is trouble-free. The truth therefore is trouble-free. Between the judgment of the dead and the judgment of the living stands the half-hour silence. The time absorbed in bringing the first judicial session to a close and preparing for the second session. Track 15, page 67. So the shepherd says that the truth therefore is trouble-free. Or in other words, clear as crystal. There will be no confusion. That between the judgment of the dead and the judgment of the living stands the half-hour silence as the dividing line, the intervening period. That when the judgment of the dead close, before the judgment of the living begins, there must be half-hour silence first. Then after the half-hour silence, then the second judicial session commences. So, very plain according to this reading. The dividing line is the half-hour silence. Brothers and sisters, when the other is past and the other begun, as stated in answerer number 1, page 94 and 95. It is the half-hour silence because the proceedings is divided only into two. The proceedings that pertains to the dead and the proceedings that pertains to the living. And the dividing line, the intervening period, is the half-hour silence. Now, let us read again the old symbolic code. Let us read. One symbolic code, number 16, page 3. One symbolic code, number 16, page 3. It says, Malachi 3 first applies as a type to the purification of the earthly temple in the days of Christ. John chapter 2 verses 14 and 15. But the direct application finds its fulfillment in the antitype, that is, in the purification of the church. When he comes to his earthly temple, the church, to purify the sons of Levi, the ministry, the 144,000. After this, he comes for the investigative judgment of the living to his heavenly temple to blot out their sins. Now, in that reading, we can easily discern that when Jesus Christ visits the earth to purify the sons of Levi, their sins at that time were not yet blotted out. Because the statement declared clearly in 1 Symbolic Code 16, page 3, that after this, after such visitation, when Jesus Christ will return to the most holy place, he will blot out the sins of the 144,000. So the blotting out of sins of the 144,000, brothers and sisters, must be from the time when Jesus Christ visits the earth and then return to the heavenly sanctuary. That returning of Jesus Christ is to blot out the sins of the 144,000. Now, I would like to show to you the event. We know that there is a little time of trouble here. Let us put here. A little time of trouble. And also called short time of trouble. And then, the dividing line between the little time of trouble and we have here great time of trouble. Great time of trouble. So this is the dividing line, which is called half-hour silence. Half-hour silence. Now, brothers and sisters, in this half-hour silence, Jesus Christ, from the heavenly sanctuary, from most holy place, descend to earth to deliver the 144,000 living saints. and He will stay on earth just 7 days. And that is the reason why it is half-hour silence. Because after 7 days, Jesus Christ will return to the heavenly sanctuary. And then, the judicial proceedings resume. Now, would you think it is the visitation of Jesus Christ that after His visitation, then return to the heavenly sanctuary to blot out the sins of the 144,000? So we need to study closely. Brothers and sisters, now let us read the great controversy. During the little time of trouble. So let us read. The great controversy. It says here, great controversy on page 620 and 621. It says, had not Jacob previously repented of his sin in obtaining the birthright by fraud, God would not have heard his prayer and mercifully preserved his life. So in the time of trouble, if the people of God had unconfessed sins to appear before them, while tortured with fear and anguish, they would be overwhelmed, despair would cut off their faith, and they could not have confidence to plead with God for deliverance. So this is the time when they were pleading day and night for deliverance. But while they have a deep sense of their unworthiness, they have no cancelled wrongs to reveal. Their sins have gone beforehand to judgment and have been blotted out, and they cannot bring them to remembrance. So the voice of inspiration is plainly telling that during the little time of trouble, the sins of the 144,000 were already blotted out. Because if their sins were not blotted out, they will be overcome by the devil. And the mere fact that they win victoriously because they could no longer remember. So in that illustration, when our sins will be blotted out, we forget everything. Brothers and sisters, we could no longer remember. That is the power of the blotting out of sins. God will take out from our remembrance all the sins that we committed. So during the time of trouble, according to the vision of Sister White, 620 and 621, the sins of the 144,000 were already blotted out. Do not forget that the blotting out of sins, that is during the Day of Atonement. So, it must be the Day of Atonement prior to the commencement of the little time of trouble. So, when the little time of trouble begins, their sins were already blotted out. So, in that reading, brothers and sisters, it could not be the half-hour silence after the little time of trouble, which is the general destruction of all the wicked Sabbath keepers, by which at midnight, God will deliver the 144,000 and brought to Mount Zion, And when Jesus Christ will return to the heavenly sanctuary, no, it is no longer the sins of the 144,000 that will be blotted out at that time, but rather the sins of the great multitude which no man could number. So there must be visitation of Jesus Christ prior to that time. Now, I would like to show to you, brothers and sisters, the illustration. During this visitation of Jesus Christ, the purpose is to deliver the 144,000 living saints. And Jesus Christ will brought them to Mount Zion and their stay to Mount Zion. So it could not be the slaughtering mentioned in the shepherd's rod that his garment had been stained by blood. How could it be that it will be stained by blood when Jesus Christ visits at this time? He will deliver the 144,000 and then stay to Mount Zion for 7 days. Then return to the heavenly sanctuary. So brothers and sisters, since there are two slaughtering. Now, let us read Old Symbolic Code. The Old Symbolic Code. 3 Symbolic Code, number 1, page 8. 3 Symbolic Code, number 1, page 8. It says, therefore, as there are two separations, there is a double fulfillment of Ezekiel's slaughter. One in the church before the close of provision, and the other in the worldly churches after the close of provision. So that statement is very plain. Now, this slaughtering is after the close of provision. But the shepherd's rod says, there is a slaughtering before the close of provision. And that is the slaughtering in the church. This subject is very important to study, brothers and sisters, concerning the slaughtering. But at this time, I just focus my attention to the half-hour silence. So, the half-hour silence here, which is the slaughtering after the close of provision, could not be the half-hour silence, the slaughtering, brothers and sisters, before the close of provision. So, there must be at least 2 half-hour silence. The half-hour silence after the close of provision and the half-hour silence before the close of provision. Because the slaughtering has a double fulfillment according to 3 Symbolic Code, number 1, page 8. And of course, we need to focus first to the half-hour silence prior to the close of provision. Now, let me read to you this reading. To SR. To SR page 165. When this number is sealed, provision will close for the church and the judgment for those who are in the world will commence. What is the statement? 2SR 165, when the number of the 144,000 are sealed, probation closed for the church. But that is pointing to the sealing on the earthly sanctuary, not the sealing in the heavenly sanctuary. So when the 144,000 are completely sealed, guarded, protected, probation closed for the church. Now let us read 1SR. 1SR page 38. 1SR page 38. The men with the slaughter weapons were already slaying before the man with the writer's inkhorn returned to report the matter that he had done as he was commanded. So this slaughtering must be the slaughtering prior to the close of provision. When does probation close? At the time when the angel reported to Jesus Christ that the sealing is finished. But before the angel reported to Jesus Christ, because that is the statement in 2SR 165. That is why I've said that is in the earthly sanctuary, because when the angel reported to Jesus Christ is on the earth. So the occurrence is on the earthly sanctuary. Now, I would like to read first, track number 1. So let us read the statement. Track number 1 on page 20 and page 21. 2 sealing reports. And behold, says Ezekiel, the man clothed with linen, which had the inkhorn by his side, reported the matter while on earth. So the word while indicates limitation of time. Right? That is the statement in track number 9. That is what it means by the word while. Here in track number 9, page 10, the words while the earth remaineth expressly denoting limitation of time. So the statement, the angel with the writer inkhorn reported to Jesus while Jesus Christ was still on earth, because Jesus Christ will return to the heavenly sanctuary to blot out the sins of the 144,000. And it is perfectly corroborating to the statement in track number 3, 1934 edition, on page 75. It says, track number 3, 1934 edition, page 75, the typical wave loaves, which signified the completion of the first fruit harvest, Leviticus 23 verse 17, were baken with leaven to symbolize that the sins were not blotted out at the time the servants of our God were sealed. That is already past tense. Were sealed. It did not say the servants of our God are sealed. So even after they were already sealed, their sins at that time were not as yet blotted out. Track number 3, 1934 edition, page 75. Because Jesus Christ is still on the earth, and Jesus Christ waits the report of the angel before he will return to the heavenly sanctuary to blot out the sins of the 144,000 living saints. Now let us go back again to the reading on track number 1, page 20 and 21. Two sealing reports. And behold, says Ezekiel, the man clothed with linen, which had the inkhorn by his side, reported the matter while on earth, saying, I have done as thou hast commanded me. Ezekiel 9 verse 11. Here is the first report made at the completion of the sealing in the church, the sealing of the first fruits. And at the time when the angel reported to Jesus, probation closed for the church, and the judgment for the world begins. 2SR 165. But the absolute fact is that, according to 1SR page 38, the 5 slaughtering angels are already slaying even before the angel or the man with the writer inkhorn reported to Jesus. Therefore, that is the slaughtering before probation closes, stated in 3 Symbolic Code, number 1, page 8. Therefore, we can understand completely 3 Symbolic Code, number 1, page 8, that the slaughtering mentioned there is the slaughtering before the angels reported to Jesus Christ, because when the angel reported to Jesus Christ, probation closed for the church, and that slaughtering is before probation closed for the church. We already explained yesterday, brothers and sisters, the comparison. There are 4 distinctions, brothers and sisters, between the first report and the second report. Let us enumerate again, one by one. At the first report, Jesus Christ is in the earthly sanctuary. According to our reading in track number 1, 20 and 21. At the second report, early writings 279, Jesus Christ is in the heavenly sanctuary. And the second difference, when the angel reported to Jesus Christ returned to heaven or ascended to the heavenly sanctuary. How about the second report? When the angel reported to Jesus Christ in the heavenly sanctuary, he descended to earth, or he came out from the heavenly sanctuary. While the first report, he entered into the heavenly sanctuary. But at the second report, he go out. He went out. So that is the difference, brothers and sisters, of the first report and second report. At the first report, probation closed for the church. At the second report, probation closed for the world. So, that is the differences between the first report as well as the second report. Now, I would like to read again track number 1. Page 39. It says, after the sighing and crying ones were marked, which is not to be understood as being consummated in its entirety worldwide, before the slaying follows anywhere, the slaughter completed, and the matter reported. The Lord spake unto the man clothed with linen, and said, Go in between the wheels, even under the cherub, and fill thine hand with coals of fire from between the cherubims, and scatter them over the city. The scattering of the coals of fire over the city represents absolute purification of the heart. Gospel Workers, page 23, effected by the outpouring of the Holy Spirit upon those who receive the mark, those who escape the slaughter. Who are they to be slaughtered before probation closes? And who are they to be slaughtered after probation closes? We will discuss that on our next episode. But we are just trying to arrange the exact chronological order of events. Now, according to this reading, in track number 1, page 38 and 39, the slaughter completed and the matter reported. Brothers and sisters, in this slaughtering, it is only 1 hour. The entire midnight. From 12 up to 1 a.m. 1 hour. 60 minutes. By which the slaughtering is not worldwide. I would like to read the statement again. Track number 1, page 38 and 39. After the sighing and crying ones were marked, which is not to be understood as being consummated in its entirety worldwide, before the slaying follows anywhere. So the statement, slaying follows anywhere, that is worldwide. That is called the general destruction of all the wicked Sabbath keepers, and that is after probation closes. Now, I would like to read to you first the Old Symbolic Code. Old Symbolic Code. The statement. 1 Symbolic Code, number 14, page 6. 1 Symbolic Code, number 14, page 6. As Amos says, the habitations of the shepherds shall mourn. It is obvious that Amos' prophecy is yet future. For the word habitations, places, is in the plural form, which cannot be applied to one shepherd's habitation, denomination, but to all that be in existence at that time. To all. Without any exemption, to all that be existence at that time. The term shepherds means, as understood, the same as the ancient men, which were before the house, the ministers. The Testimonies for the Church, volume 5, page 211. Note that the shepherds are not themselves to mourn, but their habitations, their houses, that is the membership of their churches, which fact reveals that it will be thus at the time when the sleeping multitudes in the churches awake from their spiritual insensibility and find that the shepherds whom they have implicitly trusted for their salvation have deceived all those who followed them. Brothers and sisters, ponder deeply in this reading. Habitations, it says, their houses. And it says without any exemption, all. And when this prophecy will be fulfilled, let us continue to the next paragraph. The prophet Jeremiah, in the following words, explained that this wailing by those who are thus deceived will be at the close of provision. Therefore, brothers and sisters, those who gnash their teeth in lamentation and mourning after the close of provision cannot be the ministers. Why? Because all of them are destroyed prior to the close of provision. That is very plain in 3 Symbolic Code, number 1, page 8. The slaughtering prior to the close of provision. But this membership, why is it that the membership, they will be the one to mourn? Because their ministers, all of them are destroyed. When they will be destroyed? Prior to the close of provision. When will be the membership? Will gnash their teeth, lament and mourn after probation closes. When would be probation will close? After the angel reported to Jesus Christ. Now, I would like to gradually explain, brothers and sisters. 1 SR, page 38. The 5 angels were already slaying before the man with the writer inkhorn reported to Jesus Christ. When the man with the writer inkhorn reported to Jesus Christ, probation for the church closed. What is the statement in 3 Symbolic Code, number 1, page 8? There are 2 slaughtering. The slaughtering before probation closes. What is that slaughtering? That is the slaughtering mentioned in 1 SR, page 38. By which in that slaughtering, the angel did not as yet reported to Jesus Christ. Therefore, before probation closes. When does probation will close? When the angel reported to Jesus Christ. So that is the slaughtering before probation closes. And we will discuss that on our next episode, that slaughtering is only 1 hour. 1 hour. I would like to read 1 SR Packet Edition. Let us read. One SR Packet Edition, page 55. Page 55. It says, these prophetic passages with certainty forewarned that shortly the sinners will taken away from Jerusalem. The filth of the daughters of Zion be washed away. And thus they promise that only the righteous from the four corners of the earth will have a part in the forthcoming antitypical Exodus. The Passover too, in which perish all the firstborn of men and beasts that were found in dwellings which had not the blood on the doorposts, forspoke an antitypical Passover, in which all who are left without the mark, because of not sighing and crying for the abominations in their midst, will surely fall under the slaughter weapons of the angels. Ezekiel 9 verse 2. When will this come to pass? So the question says, when will this come to pass? The type unquestionably reveals the time through the fact that only the firstborn were then in danger. So in that slaughtering, only the firstborn will be slaughtered. I would like to read first 1 SR. It says here, 1 SR page 96. 1 SR page 96. The firstborn, a symbol of a class of priesthood, a representation of Ezekiel 9 verse 6. Last part, the ancient men that were before the house. So what is the firstborn? Class of priesthood. A representation of Ezekiel 9 verse 6. Last part, the ancient men that were before the house, from the firstborn that seated upon the throne to the firstborn in the dungeon. Symbol of Ezekiel 9 verse 6. So brothers and sisters, why is it that it says, heart not the earth and the sea? The first location is earth. Revelation 7 verse 3. But if you look at Revelation chapter 7 verse 3, the only that had been mentioned in that verse is, the only thing is that the tree. It did not say grass. Only the trees. I would like to read here. Revelation chapter 7, verse 3, saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. The grass had not been mentioned in this verse, only the trees. The trees on the earth and the trees on the sea. And the shepherds rod declared clearly in tract number 8. Page 24. I would like to read to you. Tract number 8, page 24. It says, it is located to John in the symbol of the two-horned beast coming up, not out of the sea, but out of the earth. Revelation 13:11. Tract number 8, page 24. It is located to John in the symbol of the two-horned beast coming up, not out of the sea, but out of the earth. Revelation 13:11. The only place, it says, the only place where trees naturally grow. Where is that place that the trees naturally grow? only in the two-horned beast domain. And they were so proud because the headquarters is located in the two-horned beast domain. And then it says here, and as according to Daniel 4 verse 20 to 22, trees are figurative of rulers. Therefore, the trees in this instance represents the ancient men before the house. Ezekiel 9 verse 6, a fact which reveals that in this period, the church headquarters are in the two-horned beast dominion, the new world, the earth. And they emphasize clearly concerning the headquarters. But if you will look at the predicted event in 1 Symbolic Code number 14, page 6, it says that it is applied to all. What does it mean by habitation? That is headquarters. To all the denomination located in the United States of America. What does it mean by the word all? Without any exemption. And the voice of inspiration says that, note that the shepherds are not themselves to mourn, but their habitations, their houses, that is the membership of their house, of their churches, which fact reveals that it will be thus at the time when the sleeping multitudes in the churches awake from their spiritual insensibility and find that the shepherds whom they have implicitly trusted for their salvation have deceived all those who follow them. And it is even more directly applied to the 7 antitypical brothers of David, because number 7 indicates completeness. That is the 7 antitypical churches. Because there are 7 typical churches and 7 antitypical churches. Brothers and sisters, I would like to read that reading in 2SR, saying that 2SR page 18, saying, but though it possible to deceive men, we can never impose upon God, for He knows what is in the heart. 2SR page 18. So what is the bottom line, brothers and sisters? And sometimes it says here in 2SR page 95, 2SR page 95, it says, a hypocrite may hide his sin from the eyes of others, and sometimes from his own conscience, but can never impose upon God. Can never impose upon God. That statement is also applied to myself. Brothers and sisters, and in 10 Symbolic Code number 7, page 5 and 6, it says, they may fool themselves, but they can never impose on God. 10 Symbolic Code number 7, 5 and 6, they may fool themselves, but they can never impose on God. The time is getting shorter and shorter, brethren. And, well, everybody is claiming to be right. According to the shepherd's rod, it says that when division come in, 11 symbolic code number 7. And this was quoted in the writings of Sister White. And volume 5. Testimonies for the Church, 688 and 89. When controversy or division comes in, 11 symbolic code number 7, page 3 and 4. When controversy or division comes in, all parties claim to be right and to have a conscience void of offense. So all parties claim to be right and to have a conscience void of offense. But there is a boundary line. Brothers and sisters, there is a boundary line. In 2SR page 98, it says, people have come to suppose they can do most anything under the guise of Christianity and get away with it. God will let them continue their course until they, like Belshazzar, have passed the boundary line of divine grace, and then He will call them to account. 2SR page 98. And that boundary line is getting closer and closer, brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to continue reading. It says, 1 symbolic code number 14, page 6. The prophet Jeremiah, in the following words, explained that this wailing by those who are thus deceived will be at the close of provision. When does provision will close? Brethren, when the angel reported to Jesus Christ, while Jesus Christ was still on the earth, probation closed for the church. Now let us read again the statement. The prophet Jeremiah in the following words explains that this wailing by those who are thus deceived will be at the close of provision. Remember, the one who wail are not the leadership. Why? Because the leadership are destroyed prior to the close of provision. The one that will mourn are the membership. Brothers and sisters. But the 144,000 living saints, they are scattered throughout the earth without a shepherd. Brothers and sisters, it is Jesus Christ that take charge of the flock. 1 SR 222. Then it says, for they shall say, the harvest is past, the summer is ended, and we are not saved. Jeremiah 8:20. That is, after the harvest, the time in which they could have been saved, they will realize that provisionary time has closed. Then the habitations of the shepherd shall mourn. What is the habitation of the shepherds? The membership of their churches. And then it says, and the top of Carmel shall wither. What is the top of Carmel? It did not say, and Carmel shall wither, but it is the top of Carmel. That is to weather. Then it says, hence, before that time, the top of Carmel must have been green with much pasture. Otherwise, there would be nothing to weather. That is, though Carmel has now plenty of pasture, present truth. When probation closes, it shall be deserted whither. For says the small prophecy, in the time of trouble, we all plead from the cities and villages. Early Writings, page 34. Now, I would like to emphasize first on the chronological order of events. That the slaughtering mentioned here is prior to the little time of trouble. Brothers and sisters, because it says that during that time when the membership of the churches shall lament and mourn, the 144,000 living saints are leaving the cities and villages. And that is during the little time of trouble, according to Early Writings, page 33 and page 34. So this is slaughtering. This destruction occurs prior to the little time of trouble and before probation closes. Whereas the last and the final slaughtering, the general destruction of all the wicked Sabbath keepers, is after the little time of trouble and after probation closes. But, of course, the most important part must be the slaughtering prior to the close of probation. This message is addressed to all the leadership as well as the membership. Do not wait the time when you will be awakened to the absolute fact that the leadership whom you implicitly trusted had deceived all those who followed them. If you will only look at the grammar used by the shepherd's rod, then there will be no more difficulty. Because the shepherd's rod used all without any exemption. Indicating, brothers and sisters, that the present truth does not originate in the two-horned beast domain. Because all of them deceived all of them who followed them. So, if you will only study the shepherd's rod in the Bible, in reality, Carmel is not referring to the place. In the type, it is referring to the place. But in the antitype, it must be referring wherever the green pasture, wherever the present truth could be found. That is the top of Carmel. Brothers and sisters. But shepherd's rod believers, they are more interested to the place rather than to the present truth. We will continue this subject on our next episode, and hoping that we have been able to gradually expound to you the chronological order of events from 2020 onwards, from heavenly sanctuary to the occurrence on earth. Thank you very much for listening and viewing this program. May the good Lord bless you and have a beautiful, wonderful evening.